And apparently the whole egg thing is based off of a ridiculous, conflict between the Protestants and Catholics over baptism.
Well, it was just over the control of the country. You know, that's what the gunpowder plot was all about. You know, the Catholics versus the Anglicans, going on pretty much since Henry VIII. So, hello everyone. I think we are live. YouTube has kind of forced us over to their new chat thing, their new live stream thing. So we'll see if the chat shows up. Hopefully, I'm going to see.
I'm getting
something...
an ad for TikTok. I thought that site got banned.
Well, I have no idea what went on with that. And supposedly it's being bought, and I think Microsoft was one of the guys that was going to buy it, and then someone else was. I don't know. But if someone can post something in the chat so I can see if it's working, hopefully it'll show up over on the left side of my screen. Can you guys see the real chat to see if anyone's posting?
Dangerous Snake says hi, and Pierre Collins says hi.
Yeah, I'm not seeing it. Dang it. What you doing to me, YouTube?
And Dangerous Snake says, yep, it works.
Well, maybe I can...
Nope, and there's Inquisitor. A.K.A. Bradley McPhee. The person you need is Bradley McPhee.
Alright. Now, if I do this, I wonder if I can get it...
Please hold. We're having technical difficulties.
Yeah, YouTube, can I borrow your team of trained monkeys to fix this problem? I don't know if they still do. I don't know if they still do that, but when YouTube used to go down, they used to have that message that says,
still have that.
Yeah, there's an issue with the server. A team of trained monkeys has been sent to fix it.
All right, this might work. Let's see.
Oh, great, another test.
Personally, I always preferred the one that Oatmeal made, which goes something along the lines of, a mess of gobble snatchers have burrowed their way into our server room. We've sent an intern with a flamethrower, and our server should be our backup momentarily.
Yeah.
This isn't related, but I posted one in the memes chat that was Das Blinken Lights, if you remember that. No, I guess not. Maybe it's just me. All right. Well, I've got something resembling the chat up there. I'm just kind of sharing the screen now, so at least that will be there. But I'm not seeing anything on the actual chat. So,
yeah. Jade the Magic Robot. I don't see him in the main chat, but I see him in the one you posted.
Okay, so. All right, I've got it shared up there. So, all right, kind of 5 minutes into it or something, we've been having some technical difficulties because of YouTube forced us into their new chat thing, their new live stream thing, which doesn't work very well. So,
it's YouTube. When has it ever worked?
Well, I mean, at least I had it where the chat would show up where I wanted it to, and it was all nice and fancy and kind of looked like Twitch and was the way I wanted it to look, but it's...
Jay the Magic Robot, don't you remember? Atheists don't have morals. I like to jokingly say it's like, yeah, it's true, atheists don't have morals, but hey, they're 10 times better than the morals the Bible tells you.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is some...
I'd rather have no morals than bad morals.
Yeah, I mean, there is some messed up stuff in that... Because, it's pretty funny, because, they always say, well, we got to take the entire Bible seriously. And I'll admit, there's some good messages and morals in the New Testament, but the Old Testament, are you sure you want to be following that? I mean, that's the one where God says that if you go to war with someone, it's perfectly okay to genocide their men, rape their women, and takes them as slaves and forcibly circumcise their children. So... yeah. Might want to rethink your morals there, Bible people.
Yeah. All
There's a guy called
I'm calling that good enough for the chat. I'm not going to delete it anymore. We got it on the screen. That's the main thing.
It's good.
I'm really talking about. Really talking
right?
about the what's that?
Yeah, did you get that reference that I said?
Which reference?
I said it's good enough for me. I'm not gonna do the I part. It's Cyndi Lauper, the Goonies theme. Yeah.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah.
The Goonies letter R good enough. So.
Yeah.
All right. Moral Foundations test. What you really came here to watch. So.
Yeah.
All right. And what is this thing? Lots of people were requesting this, and it says social scientists such as blah 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 and so argue there are substantial variations in human morality, and that these differences influence not just a person's decision making and reasoning process, but also their political outlook.
Yeah, that's what the that's what the last 10 tests said.
Yeah, but I mean, I've always kind of been resistant to this idea that that politics should reflect morality. I mean, I can think it's immoral to do heroin, but not want it to be illegal, you know?
Well, yeah, exactly. You know, I mean, that's, you know, and I've mentioned that countless times. You know, that's the thing I hate, you know, with when debating status with libertarians, is because they say, oh, you want it legal, that means you're pro it and you want it. So you want kids to be snorting heroin, and you want women to be getting abortions, and you want 3-year-olds to be able to buy guns. It's like, no, we're just saying it's just saying that trying to get the government to ban that stuff doesn't work, and there's better ways of discouraging that behavior than just outright banning it.
Yeah. So, in recent years, researchers and scholars from all over the world have converged on the framework on moral foundations theory in an attempt to explain these individual differences, as well as to make sense of the many instances of moral outrage and offense that are increasingly seen in public debate. By drawing findings from their research, this test aims to give you your scores according to the moral foundations framework. And I think this is just what they've done. They've kind of stuck this, not on its own screen, it's just kind of stuck in the middle here. So they're going to give us 36 questions, and we'll see how I do on them. And the first one says, when a homeless man asks Matt for spare change, Matt keeps on walking and says, don't talk to me, loser. And they have okay and not okay, and there are varying degrees on that, so... I mean this goes to something. I have a quickie on this. It's called the fundamental attribution error. Maybe Matt is just really having a bad day, and that's not how he would normally act. Yeah. Or maybe the something else, that maybe this is like the 20th guy, you know, who's been panhandling for money. But usually we see this and we think like, well, gee, Matt's kind of a jerk, isn't he? Well, he might not be. It might just be in the situation, and you might behave. Yeah, and not to mention, it's also possible that Matt knows how homeless people act, and you know, I'm not saying we shouldn't help the homeless people, but there's been plenty of studies that have shown that, contrary to what you may think, giving a homeless person money and free stuff generally doesn't help them and only incentivizes them to stay homeless. Well, and a lot of them are just outright frauds anyway. John Stossel found that out.
Oh yeah, that too. Yeah, a lot of them, and some of them are legitimately homeless, but they have no intention of getting better. They just want free stuff, and if you give them like a $20 bill, there's a pretty good chance they're just going to use it to purchase booze or drugs to get their fix.
Yeah, and if you're genuinely homeless and you're genuinely wanting to I mean, there are options. You do. In pretty much every city, there are charities that'll take you in and feed you and help you, but they generally want you to do things like, you know, get clean, you know, try and look for work, things like that. You know.
And in that same John Stossel episode, they were interviewing some of them, and many of the guys just flat out admitted, you know, they don't like working. And one former homeless man said, you know, the funny irony is that being homeless isn't pretty, but if you know how to work it, it's actually not that bad, you know. And a lot of them actually say they love it because they love the independence, you know.
And they can actually make a good amount of bank.
Oh yeah, you'd be shocked how much
you get a good place with good foot traffic.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's what one homeless guy told John Sousley. He says if you got the IQ of a rodent, you're gonna have more than enough money and food than you to make you survive a while.
Yeah. And this isn't really related to this question, but foreign aid tends to have the same thing, like when that one shoe company said, oh, for every pair of shoes you'll buy, we'll donate to a needy person in Africa. And a lot of people in Africa are like, stop doing that. We can make our own shoes. We're not stupid. All you're doing is taking our shoemakers out of business because they can't compete with free.
Yeah,
and now they can't make money to,
That's actually why. That's actually, from what I read, that's actually what caused Somalia to erupt into a civil war. It was after the Bahrain regime collapsed. They were actually slowly improving on their own, but the UN was like, "Oh no, no, you don't got a government. We got to get in and temporarily provide one for you." And they were giving out all these free services, and it basically drew all of Somalia's farmers and fishermen out of work because the UN was giving everyone a boatload of food for free.
So I'm going to say not okay, but just not. I'm going to go one notch toward not okay here. Because it's not okay, but really they're generally
It's
in a place like
impolite.
there's something else going on.
I think it's just oh, sorry, Pipsqueak.
It may be impolite, but it's still kind of his money, and he can do what he likes with it.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to give it out to every person on the street.
Yeah.
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 It's just not very nice, so I notched it
Yeah.
towards not okay.
Yeah. And also, I forgot to put this up before we move on. Also, what if Matt realizes that this homeless guy is actually a giant Paleozoic creature 3 feet tall, and he wants tree fitty?
But
Yeah.
you're not gonna give him no tree fitty.
Yeah, it's like, oh, you goddamn
you can-
monster!
You can start with $1, work your way up.
Mm.
I forget exactly how that goes.
Yeah.
All right, a
No, it's
Christian bakery. Oh, we know where this is from. A Christian bakery refuses to custom decorate a cake with chocolate letters that would carry a pro-gay message. Perfectly okay.
Oh yeah. It's pretty funny because people are like, well, no, you have to respect other people's opinions. Okay, well
Okay,
then, are you saying I don't want to use the "are you saying" fallacy, but I would say, well, are you okay then with forcing a Jewish bakery to make a swastika cake for a neo-Nazi group?
Well, that's totally different.
Yeah, then I'm
No,
gonna
it's
say
not.
then you're a hypocrite, and that
Mhm.
means your way of thinking's flawed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
How's my audio coming through? I'm seeing weird things on the meter. Hang on. It's probably coming out okay in the Discord, but here. Okay, that should be clearer on the live stream, hopefully.
Dangerous Snake.
I'm seeing better
Dangerous
levels
Snake.
there. Okay.
Okay. Yep. Dangerous Snake says he was debating a commie that used used the fact that my morality contradicts my claims on justice to say that libertarian principles are arbitrary, and he says because I told him that helping the poor is moral, but forcing that behavior is unjust. Yeah, Walter Williams, pointed this out. He says, look, I am not against people donating their own time and money. If you see a homeless guy and you take money out of your own wallet, that's fine. What I'm against is you pointing a gun at someone and saying, take out $20 and give it to that homeless person, because then it's theft.
And bringing it back to the question, it's like if someone wanted me to, make a video or something, saying, Jesus is Lord, or, Muhammad is prophet, or whatever, I can completely respect their beliefs and still refuse to do that.
Oh, yeah.
So.
Yeah. Yeah, that's that.
I mean, what if it was the bakery owner was an atheist, and a big, Richard Dawkins fan and things like that, and they wanted a Jesus is Lord cake and they refused to do it. Would that be okay? So all the same thing, people.
Oh, it'd be perfectly okay because Christianity is a white supremacist racist group.
Okay, this one's weird. I kind of have to wonder if there was something happened that prompted this question. A man orders a custom-built sex doll designed to look just like his niece.
Weird.
That's
very, very creepy.
Yeah,
but
I'm
technically ethical.
I'm going to say okay because that's better than actually his niece. I guess we're assuming the niece is underage here.
Yeah.
It doesn't say. I mean, the niece could be 30
Even
years
if
old.
She was
You know.
underage. That's still really creepy.
It's still creepy, yeah.
It's still creepy, but like you said, it's.
But I mean, is the niece is the niece 4 years old, 15 years old, or 25 years old? There's different levels of creepiness there.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if she's like 20 years old and he's 50, I mean, it's still disgusting. But if they're both consenting, then what can I do?
But this doesn't even go to that because he's not doing anything with his niece.
Yeah,
he's just getting a doll.
Yeah,
it reminds me, and I forget who this was, but it had to do with Alma Verfel, or whatever her name ended up being. She was married to like three different I think she's generally called Alma Mahler because her first husband was Gustav Mahler, but she had this whole bunch of lovers in amidst her husbands, and there was this one who was so obsessed with her that when she broke it off with him, he set about trying to make this full life-sized Alma doll for him to love. And there's photos of it online, and it is creepy. It ended up looking nothing like her, but she was actually an amazing woman. She was like a composer and everything in her own right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so it's an amazing story. Go check it out.
And contrary to what moralists say, having sex with a sex doll does not encourage the behavior of the real thing. I think they've debunked that actually.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's just like violent video games don't cause people to become violent.
Yeah. I mean, and that's another thing too, is like a lot of people, who say, oh, but if they do stuff like this with porn and all that, it's only going to encourage the behavior. And I'm like, you do not realize how porn works. Porn is designed like that because the thing is, most people who watch stuff like that, they would never carry it out in real life. They're just watching it for that thrill of it, so they can somewhat say, I wonder how this works.
Well, and it kind of fills in some of the gaps in your desires. Like, I've heard a lot of women say, oh, well, I have small breasts. My husband's looking at pictures of, big breasts and, porn with big-breasted women. It's like, yeah, and if you'd had big breasts, it might well be the other way around. And it's not because he doesn't love you. It's because he does love you. You're fulfilling that part of his needs, but his mind still wants to be creative and think about other things. So
yeah, same thing. Same thing. If he's looking up, porn of women taking it out the other hole, and it's like, well, why does that mean he doesn't love me? It's like, no, he loves you and you're satisfying his need, but he respects you enough that he's not going to try doing that. So instead, when he's feeling like that mood, he just looks it up online.
Well, and also, I mean, if this niece is like 12 years old or something, I think allowing him to order the sex doll might let everyone know, okay, maybe we ought to just keep a closer eye on him when he's with his niece. I mean, if there is something to that, then you might call it a warning sign. Whereas if you say, no, you can't do that, then you've taken a warning sign away.
Well, I don't want to sound like I'm victim blaming, but like I said, if that's the case, then I think that's kind of the responsibility of the parents. Like if they know he's a little, creepy around his niece, they need to make sure that, okay, listen, if we're ever in town with our niece and all that, you stay the hell away from us. I don't care what the circumstances are. You stay the hell away from us, All
right, a new action figure becomes all the rage among the boys in Timmy's class. When Timmy's parents get to the store, they buy all of the action figures for Timmy, leaving none for the other children.
First of all, why would they do that? I mean, I know they're trying to make it look like a hoarding thing, but people don't hoard toys like that. They hoard things like,
some really bad parents do and spoil their children, but it kind of ignores the fact that most stores will order more, or they already have more on the way because they're expecting to sell some. Because if it's a popular toy, they're going to order more before they sell the ones that are already on the shelf.
Yeah.
Well, and the Timmy's parents buying the toys is a signal to the store, hey, this is popular, let's get more in. Ultimately, that it might take a little time, but ultimately it would be better making them more available for the other kids.
Not to mention, not to mention if the toy is so popular that that they've seen people like that doing that, there's actually a pretty good possibility that the store will flat out say, okay, you can buy 2 of the action figures, but that's all we can allow because other people need to do that. Contrary to what the Fairly Odd Parents show, you can't just go up to a movie theater and say, I want to buy all the seats for this one movie. It's like, and say, oh no, it's not for anyone else, it's just for my piles of money. Most movie theaters are going to say, yeah, no thank you, because they recognize that doing something like that will give them a short-term gain, but in the long run the other customers are going to be like, what the hell, and they're not going to come back. So
on the other hand, they're happy to do private screenings for the right price.
yeah,
And Outdaft UK says, well, they can probably get them from another shop too. Yeah, is this the only shop that has the action figures?
Yeah, that is true. Well, yeah, it's true. It's like, well, yeah, it's the only shop that has the action figures. Well, then that's what we have Amazon for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just that it's not a very good question. They could have picked something other than action figures that would have made it more realistic that they would buy them all.
Yeah, if they were saying something like toilet paper or soap, that would make much more sense, because we see a lot of that with, like with the virus, and it's probably going to happen again with the hurricane,
All right, Amy and Mia are co-workers. One day, Amy offers Mia to take one of her shifts, no strings attached. Sometime later, Amy could really use someone to fill in for her, but Mia doesn't feel compelled because Amy's original offer had no strings attached. Now, it doesn't say she doesn't do it out of politeness or whatever. It just says she doesn't feel compelled, like she doesn't feel obligated. Because remember, no one owes you anything other than what they agreed to. So no one owes you their shift, regardless of what they may have had in the past. So, I mean, it's fine that she doesn't feel compelled. She should probably do it to be nice. But the question says doesn't feel compelled.
Yeah, and as many lawyers will tell you, verbal agreements are not contracts.
Well, no, verbal agreements can stand up in court. It's just difficult to prove what the agreement was.
Yeah,
But verbal agreements are considered contracts.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll have to ask legal about that.
Oh, okay. Eesh. Sarah's dog has 4 puppies. She can only find a home for 2 of them, so she kills the other 2 with a stone to the head. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say not okay.
Yeah,
I think that's my first not okay all the way to the end there.
Well, and here's the thing too. If there's plenty, look, if your dog has oops puppies, there's ways you can get rid of them without killing them. You can sell them, you can offer them up for adoption, you can give them to the Humane Society.
Well, there are rescue centers all over the place you can turn them to.
She's already tried all of that.
If her first policy of is, I can't support all these puppies, I'm gonna have to kill them, then I'm gonna say, lady, I think you seriously need to seek some sort of counseling, because unlike the argument with porn that says if you do it you're going to encourage, there's plenty of evidence.
Or at the very least, just don't own a dog. This person should not own a dog. That's all there is to it.
Yeah.
Hang on, let's give this hypothetical person the benefit of the doubt, because it says she found a home for 2 of them, which implies she doesn't want any puppies at all, and at least she found a home for 2 of them. So maybe she's gone through all of the options, can't find a home for 2 of them. My objection is
you can always surrender them to a shelter.
If you need to euthanize puppies, take them to a vet, for fuck's sake.
Yeah, no, there are options.
Ways.
Yeah.
I mean, even if she just let them out to be strays, it wouldn't be a great thing, but they'd have a better chance than...
Yeah. Yeah, in all honesty, my opinion is that if her first solution is, let's kill him with a stone to the head, that usually means you've got some sort of problem going on. Now, I'm not saying you're going to become a serial killer, but it is generally shown that if you're killing an animal just for the hell of it or for a completely inappropriate reason, that means something's wrong with you in the
or
head.
even better,
Paul, hang on, personally I agree with letting them out to strays, because I live in Australia, and I don't know if this is a problem in the US, but feral cats and dogs are a serious problem when you're talking about conserving native populations of animals.
Feral cats are a big problem around here. Yeah,
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
It's like,
that's why a big pet peeve of mine are a lot of those cat owners that say, "Oh yeah, you should let your cats every now and then. They'll find their way back. They, they're,
yeah, with something
they,
between its fucking jaws.
yeah,
But
and
compared to whacking them on the head with a stone,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. The only thing that needs to be whacked on the head with a stone is her.
Or even better, avoid the situation entirely and have your pet spayed or neutered.
Yeah,
Absolutely do that. Your
Though,
pet will also
little
be
red-
healthier and happier and live a longer life.
Yes, Bob Barker. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that was his big thing.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I actually saw a joke like that one time about it. It was a parody of Doom one time where Doom, kills the Antichrist, but he has to make sure another Antichrist doesn't ever occur. And he's like, "Huh, good luck doing that. I am on the same level as a god, so you can't kill me." And Doomsayer's like, "True, I can't kill you, but there's one thing I can do. What's that?" And then it shows the next scene where God says, so I gave you the Bob Barker treatment, and Satan's wearing the cone of shame, and he's like, shut up. Yeah.
All right, question number 7. Sarah gets drunk in a bar and makes out with 2 strangers at once. Sounds hot to me. I'm perfectly
That's
okay.
really what she wants to do with her time.
If you can get over the fact that she killed a puppy, assuming this is the same Sarah. Yeah.
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 Don't want to date a puppy killer.
Because she says, if you're having bedroom talk and she says, "I killed 2 puppies with a stone," follow the old rule that says, "Don't stick your pee-pee in crazy."
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Adam and Beth have been dating for 3 years. Adam is reluctant to have children, so Beth tells him that she's on the pill when she isn't. Oh my God, no.
Yes, because that's a good way to salvage a relationship. Unwanted children.
Oh,
and
yeah.
so good for the children too. Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, should Beth be a mother if that's what kind of thing she's gonna do?
Yeah,
nobody can tell. We're being sarcastic.
Yeah. Yeah, and the sad thing is that I've actually heard stuff like that has happened,
Yeah.
I actually was on Reddit one time. Now, granted, this is Reddit, so you can't confirm what the stories are, but they do make sense, and I can see them happening. There's plenty of guys that have said they've had crazy exes, who really wanted kids, and, they were like, "Look, honey, I don't think we're ready to have kids. We're still pretty young. We're immature. We don't have stable careers." And they did just that. They have kids, and the guy was like, "You know what? If you're going to do that, I don't want to be with you because I told you we didn't want to do that, and it clearly means you didn't listen to me." And then they go in and try to sue them and saying, "Okay, well, you walked out, so I want child support." It's like, it just doesn't work, people.
Yeah, if you ask me, having kids should be as consensual as having sex. I mean, okay, birth control doesn't always work, so it pays your money, it takes your chances. But something like this, the guy has to consent to the sex being unprotected, and
there's a huge difference between conceiving a kid because of a broken condom or for whatever reason the pill didn't work, because they do fail sometimes just for complete reasons, and saying, "Oh, don't worry, I'm on the pill," and you're really not, and you've actually been scarfing down fertility pills. That's
Adam, get as far away from Beth as possible. You do not need a person like that in your life.
Yeah, because if she does get pregnant and you say, "Listen, you're toxic, I don't want to be like that," she's going to go, "Well, then I'm going to sue you for child support and all this payment and whatnot." And it's really abusive. And it just shows how biased the courts are towards women. I mean, she can get a guy... Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I was about to say, I mean, there's been plenty of cases of courts forcing men to pay child support for their exes, even if the kid's not biologically theirs.
Yep.
Yeah.
I covered one case where they made a sperm donor pay child support.
Wow.
And the mother didn't even want child support. They made him pay it anyway because she was going on Medicaid, and if you go on Medicaid, you have to get child support. And so they got child support from the sperm donor. All right, this question has so much wrong with it, just as far as wording is concerned. The head of a public department says that none of her employees are allowed to smoke at all, not even in their free time. Okay, so first of all, what does a public department mean? Second, when it says in their free time, does that mean like in their free time lounging in the break room or hanging around outside, or in their free time at home?
Yeah, a poorly worded question, because it's like, because if it said the head of a department says none of their employees are allowed to smoke, not even on their breaks, then yeah, I could see that, because it's their business, and if not being allowed to smoke, is a big pet peeve of yours, well, then you can just quit and find another job that lets you smoke on your break.
But saying you can't smoke at home, that's kind of a different
Yeah,
thing.
it's like that's another thing I wish I wish companies would go back to, and it actually reminds me of this other Reddit story I read about, where there was this older gentleman, who when he was a teenager worked at a place one time, and they got a phone call, saying, from a woman who was a frequent customer, saying she was very upset because she saw one of their employees at a bar getting wasted and doing really stupid stuff, and she was saying, that's bad. How can how can your employees do something like that? And the guy's response was, madam, what my employees do on their days off is none of my concern.
Yeah.
What happened to that mentality?
If they're not in uniform or not clearly identifiable as an employee, it doesn't really
Yeah.
matter what they're doing.
I mean, if they're coming in just reeking of cigarette smoke like some people do, it's like, oh god, that's terrible. No.
Yeah.
Go shower and change your clothes between
Yeah,
smoking
it's
and
like-
coming to work.
Yeah.
I'm gonna leave this in the middle because it's a badly worded question.
Yeah.
An Army lieutenant neglects to file a report on a civilian killing done by troops because he knows it was an accident. Well, is that up to him?
Yeah, that's another problem too. It's like an army lieutenant, because here's the thing, and this does happen. It's a lot of people, like middle officers, they often cover up, stuff like that, not because, they're amoral a-holes, it's actually because their higher ups order them to. Yeah, they tell them, yeah, so we launched a drone strike and we found out that that it wasn't actually, a gathering for terrorists. It was actually a little kid's birthday party. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to need you to destroy the official report,
But there needs to be public review of it, isn't it? There needs to, at least go through, the channels to.
Yeah, and I mean, that's the thing that scares me about the military, is that they literally train it. They literally use cult tactics during your basic training. That's why a lot of these people do crazy stuff like that, because they program you to do it,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Basically, the whole point of the training is to give you PTSD. That's pretty much it.
Yep, yeah, that's why I'm sorry, and I mean, that's why I say I'm sorry, ex-military guys out there. I respect what you did, but don't fill me with that crap. That no, basic training is supposed to teach you to be brave and how to be able to act on your instincts, so you can shoot back at a guy who's trying to kill you. It's like, no, it's trying to turn you into a blind, obedient robot that would shoot his own dog if the colonel said to do it.
Yeah.
I disagree on that. I think military training's got a lot more, a lot less ridiculous over the years, because you still need people to think, and the progress of technology means that the modern battlefield, if you took a soldier and trained him in the same way as they did in the 1700s, he would be killed within minutes, because back in the 1700s it was drilled. The entire training was basically on drilling on how to march, how to reload, how to fire in volleys. It was extremely simplistic, and most of the battle was decided by generals ordering blocks of men around. You simply cannot do that in the modern day, because technology had advanced to a point where the modern battlefield is incredibly complex, and you need a lot of low-level decision-making. So people who say that, military training is designed to make people obedient, not really, not anymore.
But it's a big problem when you have people who have joined the military, gone through basic training, maybe served a few months, and then got injured or something and got released. And even though they've never seen any combat or anything, even though they weren't in there back that long, when they get back home, they don't know how to live, and they have all these psychological problems just from that little time in the military.
Well, hang on. How do you reconcile that and reconcile the statistics on police officers differentiating between civilian police officers and ex-military police officers? ex-military are consistently more likely to try and de-escalate a situation before using violence.
Well, yeah, because that's what they're trained to do. But I'm not talking about, in a violent situation, that they're actually trained for. I'm talking about just going home and living their lives.
Yeah. Because they still train you to be dependent on a command structure in the military, and when you get back into civilian life and there's a much more lax, command structure, at least, even on the job, it messes up with a lot of it messes up with a lot of veterans, and that's why a lot of veterans, do often say, when I'm in civilian life, I feel lost or hopeless, and that's because when you were in basic training, you were told to listen to an outside voice and to not think for yourself other than how do I follow my orders to the best ability,
Yeah. Oh, and they do a crappy job of teaching police how to de-escalate something. And I mean, there have been plenty of cases we've seen where, the police have done something horrible and killed someone, and military, if people have responded, man, if we did that, we'd be facing a court martial because we are taught to de-escalate. Whereas it seems like police today are taught to just escalate. The first little thing, you break out the military stuff, you call the SWAT team, you get the Bobcat or whatever that little tank thing is called.
The Bearcat.
That's kind of Bearcat, whatever.
Okay, question 11.
All right, 11. Some men, okay, this is completely ambiguous. I have no idea what they're asking. Some men have a private all-male club, and feminists take them to court demanding that they open it to women. Are they asking if it's okay to have a private all-male club, or are they asking if the feminists should take them to court? When I answer okay, which one of those am I answering to?
Yeah. Because, I think, because if it's talking about, having an all-male club, then yeah, I agree, because, hey, if they privately pool their resources, they have, I'm sorry, people, but businesses have the right to discriminate, and individuals have the right to discriminate. The Civil Rights Act only applies to the government.
Well, because, I mean, they went through all this in the 70s saying how horrible it was to have these all-male clubs and women should be allowed to join. And then they turned around and made these fitness clubs that only women can join.
Yeah.
Which I'm fine with, by the way, and if they want a place where they can exercise in leotards without men staring at them, okay, fair enough. But how do you reconcile the two? If you can do one, why can't you do the other?
Yeah,
so exactly. I have no idea how to answer this.
And that's another thing too, if feminists are angry about an all-male club, well, guess what? Do what Bender did when he got kicked out of the Moon amusement park. Make your own theme park with blackjack and hookers.
In fact, forget the theme park.
Yeah.
I always like the modification of that meme that's kind of ANCAP, and Bender says, well, I'm going to go create my own state, and it'll have blackjack and hookers. In fact, forget the state.
When I first saw that joke, he's like, I'm going to make my own theme park with blackjack and hookers. And I'm like, Bender, a theme park like that already exists. It's called Las Vegas.
Yeah. I don't know if that's really a theme park, but anyway.
Well, yeah, but it's got
okay. Dangerous Snake says it's probably asking if the feminists are right. So yeah, the feminists are the ones taking the positive action here. So maybe.
Yeah.
It's a no asking if the feminists are justified.
Yeah.
It's still really badly worded.
Yeah, I mean,
and that's the thing too. It's like, are the men just having their own little private club, and the no girls allowed is just a casual rule? I mean, it's not like it's not like they're being like 10-year-old boys, holding up giant, signs saying no icky girls allowed. You have cooties.
No, just the men's clubs.
Yeah,
where they go and smoke cigars or whatever else they do there.
And here's another thing, ladies, and this is actually something I read off of Reddit. It's called something that men have to say to women that women seem to not understand. It's like, listen, ladies, we love you and we can't be without you, but there are some days where we just want to be with the other guys and just hang out and all that.
Yep.
And, the thing is, women are the same. There's plenty of times where women, they love their husbands dearly, but they got to get out of the house for a couple hours to get away from them and just
they need their girl time.
Yeah, You know,
So what do I
contrary to
do
popular
here? What do I do here? Do I say okay, not okay, or
It's like that. It's like that meme. It's like that meme. You know, with the two contradictory questions. You know.
yeah?
Yeah, it's like the two contradictory buttons. It's like, what do
Well,
I do?
at least then you know what they're asking. This, I don't know what they're asking. If it is the feminists, where they then it's not okay for the feminists to do that. So I guess I'm doing not okay. Should I do that?
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah. All right,
If
we'll go with that.
if anything, it's just gonna show how bad these tests are. You know.
Yeah, I think that's really all we're doing with these live streams is showing how bad these tests are. In biology class, a human hand preserved in a jar is passed around among the students. Well, I mean, assuming that the human hand, was like bequeathed consensually or whatever, someone donated their body to science, then yeah, there is in the Royal Shakespeare Society, there is a guy who bequeathed his skull after he died to the Shakespeare Society so they could use it when performing Hamlet. And to this day, they are using that skull.
Yeah.
So
actually,
that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Actually, Shane, I think this was based on an actual case I read about where an advanced AP biology class, went to a morgue as part of a field trip, and while there, they saw the body of a former classmate of theirs who had died in a car accident.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they got in trouble with them, but from what I read, that was really more of the morgue's fault and not, the school's fault,
Also, it says biology class. I mean, is this a college class, or if they're 8-year-olds, if it's a third grade class, it might not be the best idea.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if it's an advanced high school class or a college biology class, then yes, that would be appropriate because oftentimes in biology you have to take anatomy courses, and that means you have to work with a corpse. In fact, if I recall correctly, if you're going to medical school to be a surgeon, you're actually assigned a corpse, and you're basically. And basically, your job is to diagnose how do you think they die, And they've got
and they also have you practice surgery on them, like you remove his appendix, you remove his spleen, you whatever. You're practicing all these different surgeries on him.
Yeah.
So I'm okay with this.
Because he can't kill a corpse that's already dead.
Yep.
Yeah.
Brian does not cooperate with law enforcement. Whenever he is pulled over, he refuses to answer questions and starts bickering with the officer about his rights. Well, it might not be the best idea, but morally I'm good with that.
Yeah. Actually, I was about to jokingly say, no, that's not okay, because here's the thing. Contrary to what some people say, you're under no obligation to talk to the police, Yeah, if an officer
That is very true.
If an officer comes up to you and says, hey, you know why I pulled you over? A lot of people flat out say, don't even say anything, just shake your head.
Or shrug or something.
Yeah, shake your head or shrug.
When police are, the Miranda rights goes, anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. And they never say for. There's a reason for that, because then they ain't gonna.
Yeah, because they're not going to use it for you.
Yeah.
And by the way, you have your Miranda rights the moment the officer comes up. They're not triggered by an arrest or a detention or anything. That's when they have to read you the rights, but you always have those rights.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Oh yeah, resisting arrest. That's such a contradictory thing. It's like.
I mean, there used to be this thing between resisting arrest and non-cooperation, and like what they would do in like the protests about Vietnam, and the police would come and try to take them, and try to violate their First Amendment right to protest. They just go limp. And their bodies would be, and they would make the officer like pick them up, drag them along and put them in the cop car. They were not resisting. They were not stopping them from arresting them and putting them in the cop car. They were just not, making it easier for them. And so there used to be that. But nowadays, it seems like every last little thing you refuse to do, if you refuse to, like if you say, oh, put your hands above your head, and you just put your hands to the sides of your head, oh, that's not far enough, you're not complying, you're resisting, and they shoot you.
or the classic one is, I said, put your hands behind your back right now. I can't. Put your hands behind your back right now. You're on it, you stupid officer.
Yeah.
What?
Or when they bark out, completely contradictory orders. Like one's going hands behind your back, and the other's going hands over your head, and they're barking it out at the same time. You don't know what to do.
Yeah, and it's like, and I've even heard stories of people getting tased or whatnot, because the officer told them hands behind your back, so they do that. But when they move it, they're like, I said hold still. It's like, well, what do you want me to do? Hands behind your back. Your back.
Don't move. Hands behind your back. Don't move. Hands behind. Yeah, how you do both? You can't do both.
Then you're like, well, then you get naturally frustrated. It's like, well, what do you want me to do, officer? He's resisting. Taser.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yes, Snake, I always felt that resisting arrest, what the initial arrest was for, should be an element of the crime. The courts keep saying it isn't, of course, because you can't rely on the courts for your rights. But if you're resisting arrest, what you were arrested for initially should be, an element. Because a lot of times there plainly is no arrest. He's just resisting arrest. It's like, well, what were you arresting him for?
Yeah. That also makes me of another crime that I think shouldn't be punishable anymore, and I don't know why courts do it, but being sent to jail for quote unquote contempt of court. It's like, look, if a guy's being disrupted in the courtroom, just get him out of the courtroom.
Okay, this is another weird one. In sex education class, the students are asked to inflate a condom with their mouth. Okay, first of all, ew. Second of all, let's hope it's not the same condom. Everyone has their own condom. Third, why do you need to inflate a condom? That has nothing to do with how you use it. That's not how you use a condom, people.
Yeah. Unless you're trying to teach the kids really kinky foreplay, but if so, that's still wrong. So yeah, that's not okay, because
I mean, it's not morally bad, I don't think, but it's, why would you do?
Yeah.
Question doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it's like, teacher, have you never heard of a thing called a banana? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because you're supposed to do the thing where you put the tip on, you push out the air from the tip, and then you roll the condom down. Yeah.
I've even heard that, and it's pretty funny about the banana, because I've actually heard from some people who have said, I don't know if it's true or not, but they've said, because, they're a little bit older, and they said, oh, back in my day, they actually used to use an actual person, or in some cases, like, a dildo-like object, because that's the most realistic representation, because, the truth is, bananas are usually not generally shaped like the human penis, so
right.
It may not be too accurate, so they try to use so they do that,
Trying to use something that's more like a phallus.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, morally, I don't really see, what. It's just, this is a dumb question.
Yeah.
It's a dumb question, and you guys are dumb for asking it. That's my answer to this.
It kind of reminds me of this one joke I saw. I think it was on The Simpsons, where one of the parents is being irresponsible and takes their kids with them to a bar, and then the kid says, Daddy, I gotta go to the bathroom. It's like, okay, it's right down there. And then he comes back and he's holding something. He's like, what did you got there? It's like, Daddy, this bar has balloon dispensers in the bathroom.
Bob and Pam
but it's not a balloon.
Bob and Pam are siblings. Bob is given $10 by their father and told to distribute it between them as he likes. Bob gives $1 to Pam and pockets the $9 himself.
Again, that's badly worded, because what if Pam said
reverse the roles?
Because what if Pam, told him, oh, you know what, Bob, you did all the chores, you deserve the $9. I just need $1 because tomorrow I want to get a soda from the machine in school. It's like,
I mean, if it's his choice, it's his choice.
Yeah.
If I was the father and I saw that happen, I would give it to Pam next time. It's like, all right, your turn.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Pam gets the whole $10 next time. Yeah. All right. When Kelly asks Steven out on a date, he sneers and says, like I'm gonna date a woman who looks like my overweight bulldog. Well, talk about saying what's on your mind.
Well, yeah, that's mean, but
I mean, again, rude, but okay.
But
whatever.
honest. You know,
yeah,
it lets you know.
yeah.
I'm going to nudge that to the okay sign because
Yeah.
it's not really okay, but it's okay that now she knows that he's a complete a-hole and she's better off without him.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that's another thing too. Being an a-hole also works in your favor because, it makes you realize, yeah, this person's not who I thought they were. I should avoid him because
Not worth my time.
Because there's a possibility that if he did accept and they went out and they did develop a relationship, he could possibly, develop, an abusive like behavior to her,
Hannah inherited an old flag of her country from her father, but has never used it. One day when Hannah is cleaning out the house, she discovers she's out of rags, so she uses the flag as a rag to clean the house. Sure, why not?
Yeah. Well, though I will question because I don't know if the flags are made out of that same material, so it probably would be a terrible rag,
But this is a moral question, not a question.
I know.
Of,
it's a bad joke. It's trying to be like, the joke is that it's going to be like, no, that is not okay. The materials they make the flags out of are terrible. They don't absorb water. They make a terrible rag.
Yeah, they're generally nylon, and remember, they're meant to be outside in the rain and everything. So.
Yeah. So it would make one terrible rag, though. So.
This reminds me of the a joke from Blackadder Goes Forth. He's talking with the troops in the trenches about magazine King and Country. It's like he's ragging on it, saying it's absolutely awful. And then when he's called into his officers, his commanding officers place, he goes with King and Country, without a doubt my favorite magazine, soft, strong, and thoroughly absorbent.
Yeah.
Using it as toilet paper.
Well, they're out in the trenches in World War I,
Yeah.
All right. Okay, Julie asks her friends not to fraternize with her ex-boyfriend Jake since he cheated on her with other women. 3 weeks later, Julie's friend Melissa is dating him.
Well, if that's the case,
there's not a question here. I mean,
there's no real question here.
Well, this is my personal opinion. Depending on the circumstances, this means one of two scenarios. Either Julie needs to get better quality of friends, or Julie needs to learn to let it go.
Or Melissa needs to learn to date better men.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's
I don't know what is.
If
Melissa
doesn't want to listen to her friend's advice, that's entirely on her.
Yeah. Well, Well, and to be fair, it's easy to hate on the boy for cheating, but the truth is, that's another thing that where we're a little biased towards men. Like when a woman is portrayed as cheating, it's often, popular media often portrays it as, oh, she's cheating because her husband's abusive and neglectful, but this guy she's cheating is actually a good person. And in popular media, when the guy cheats, it's just because, oh shit, she's hotter than my wife, I want to bang her. Mm-hmm. When the truth is, men often cheat for the exact same reason a woman often cheats, because their wives or girlfriends are abusive or manipulative, and they come across a woman that actually treats them like a human. It's
yeah. I'm gonna say okay here, because aside from Jake, who isn't really a subject, no one here has acted immorally. It's fine for Julie to say, hey, don't fraternize, but it's okay for Melissa to not listen to that and fraternize it. Might not be a good idea, but morally.
Yeah,
if the question was Melissa then blames him because the same guy cheated on her. Sorry, Melissa then blames Julie because the same guy cheated on her. It's like, well, no, that's not really okay because you ignored her advice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tim asks his father for permission to stay out late because his classmates are throwing a party. When his father refuses, Tim slams the door in his face.
Yeah, questionnaire maker. That's typically what a lot of teens do,
Yeah.
That's not to sound stereotypical, but I acted the same way. It's like, Dad, can I have $2? What for? What's the reason? You hate me! I hate you! I'm running away! Okay. I mean, I don't know if your kids were like that as teens, but
I don't know. My kids have been fine, really.
Well, then again, you
My
raised
my
them.
daughter my daughter went through the whole "Daddy, you're embarrassing me," which was a lot
Yeah.
of fun. I had a lot of
Yeah.
fun embarrassing her.
Mm.
I'm
That's
going to
kinda-
leave this one in the middle because it's.
That's kind of mean of you, though. I mean, I know it's fun, but here's the thing: there's actually been studies that have shown that when you deliberately go out of your way to embarrass kids, even if they expressly ask you, "Please don't do that," you're actually teaching them a bad lesson, basically. Yeah,
Well,
it's
now
kind of
considering that all I had to do to embarrass her was just to exist.
no. Well,
Yeah, there was that
Like someone
phase, I
can
guess.
build a resistance.
While on a live on-air TV show, a man kills a baby rabbit with a knife.
well, it depends on the context. Is he doing a cooking show? Because I know
Yeah,
because I know Jamie Oliver got into a lot of trouble because he killed a lamb on live air because he was showing because he's a big all organic guy who believes you should always make everything from scratch, and he was literally showing people this is how you slaughter a lamb and prep it for cooking, if I recall correctly.
Well, I mean, you need to know that kind of thing if you're going to raise your own food. If you raise your own chickens, you need to know the proper way to behead them. If you're going to fish, you need to know the proper way to kill and gut a fish.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's the problem here is it's poorly wording the question. Like, why is he killing the baby rabbit? Like, if he's doing it because he's like, because if the intro is, hello there, welcome to live, we're talking about outdoor living, and today we're going to teach you how to skin and cook a rabbit out in the wild, because then it would be appropriate. Whereas if the guy just shows up and say, hey kids, want to see what the inside of a baby rabbit looks like? Yeah, then he could argue it's not okay. But again,
we're given no context whatsoever.
Yeah, context is important, people,
All right. Using
like-
both a condom and the pill, a brother and sister decide they want to sleep with each other just once to see what it would be like.
Well,
okay.
It's weird, but okay.
Hey,
And I don't know if it's true or not, but I was reading something about psychology, and it says, apparently experimental incest, like, I'm not saying it's a thing that everyone does, but apparently according to one psychologist who was conducting the study, it's more common than we think it is, and it's not unheard of for siblings to kiss, and even, and in some rare cases, even to perform consensual oral on each other just to see what it's like,
Yeah, but I mean, it's just kind of weird because I think, at least just based on my own experience with it, there's just something genetic about it. Like, I have 2 nieces who are just absolutely gorgeous. 3 actually, because another one's become of age. All 3 of them, they are absolutely gorgeous women, and I don't have any sexual thoughts about them whatsoever.
Yeah,
I mean, it's just I don't have sexual thoughts about people in my it's just not
it's
not because it's wrong. It's just because that's how I'm genetically wired.
It kind of reminds me. It kind of reminds me of when people were giving Trump crap because he was talking about how beautiful his daughter was, and people were like, Trump's an incestuous pedophile. It's like, no, he's just. A lot of dads would do like that because
No.
let's be real here. His daughter is a good-looking woman, and a lot of fathers would say the exact same thing. They'd say, "Look at my daughter. She's this is a picture of my daughter at her prom. Look how beautiful she is. She's a beautiful
there's
woman."
nothing wrong with that whatsoever. If you're the person who thinks there's something wrong with it, then you're the one everyone needs to worry about.
Yeah. That's what I agree. I think if you're the person that says, "Oh, you shouldn't have your daughter dressed like that. It makes her look like a little skank," I'm thinking that says more about you than my daughter.
In sex education class, okay, another terribly worded one. The students are taught that since the sexes are equal, the girls should sleep with as many guys as they want without fear of being considered sluts. Okay, first of all, complete non sequitur. What does that have to do with the sexes being equal?
Yeah, and actually one person also pointed this out. There's actually a reason why men are sometimes, well, first of all, contrary to popular belief, men are not seen as, oh, he's awesome because he slept with so many women. No, generally when a guy is sleeping with a bunch of women, a lot of people generally are like, dude, what the hell's your problem? It's like, when are you gonna settle down? It's like you're taking all these women, but you're not actually settling down. It's like, what's wrong with you? But one person pointed out the reason why girls are often, called sluts when they sleep with a lot of guys is because, let's be real here, it's a lot harder for a man to get laid versus a woman because
Well, and let's also think, who is it that's generally calling them sluts? Is it men or is it other women?
yeah,
It's almost always other women. So
Yeah,
what does this have to do with gender equality? What does this have to do with how
Yeah.
many people you could sleep with?
Yeah. kind of reminds me of Joe Rogan when he was on his podcast. He was talking to a friend about how his friend was dating a girl, and they took him, and they took her, they went home together and they spent time, and she was getting ready to do the deed, but he had to call it off early because the dinner they had upset his stomach, and he had a case of the runs, so he decided to just say good night, have a good day, and rush to his home so he could go to the bathroom because he was afraid if he used her bathroom that would destroy the relationship. And the very next day when he came back, all her friends, she was okay with it and they still dated, but her friends were like, that was so sweet of you for leaving and not having sex with her. That was awesome of you. And Joe Rogan was like, yeah, you want to know why they say that? It's because they're not getting laid, and their mentality is, well, if I'm not getting laid, then my friend can't get laid, and if she does get laid, I'm gonna shame her for it.
Yeah, I mean, it's
yeah.
I don't know. I'm leaving this one in the middle. Terrible question.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, but this has been made with the aid of professionals, with the input of researchers who work professionally with political science and political analysts. Well, how about experts on question writing? I think that's kind of
that's another thing I hate is like when they say sociologists. It's like, no, I think if they were a psychologist, they'd be more credible because.
Tina promises her dying mother that she'll visit her grave once a month. After the mother has passed away, Tina finds it hard to squeeze in the time, and her visits drop to about once a year. Well, it's not like her mom's gonna notice the difference.
Yeah, it's like.
I mean, she's got her life to live now.
Yeah. Yeah. Again,
I say this as someone who has lost a wife, so no one give me that crap.
Yeah, it's. Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, you lost your second wife. Yeah, unfortunately, to a drunk driver.
Drunk driver. Yeah.
Yeah. Perfect good example of why you should never drink and drive, people. Yeah.
Nope. All right, a group of parents concerned about their children's risk of obesity demand that the local store stop selling XL-sized candy bars and soft drinks. How is that their job and not yours?
Yeah, it reminds me of Butter. It reminds me of Butters' parents. Where Butters is starting to act, inappropriately because his parents are like the worst case of helicopter parents, but yet they can never take responsibility for their own failed actions. So it's like, no, it couldn't have been something we done. We're great parents.
Yeah, I'm sliding that all the way to not okay.
Yeah, it's like,
which I'm assuming this is like a formatting error because I've squeezed up the screen. It kind of makes it look like not okay is on the middle, but I think it's supposed to be over here on the side, and I just didn't leave it enough room.
It's pretty fun, and it's pretty funny too because it's like, well, I want them to stop selling candy bars. Well, why can't you tell them no? Because if I tell them no, they throw a fit and destroy a tantrum, and I'm just thinking, come on, I don't have kids, and even I can tell you if your kid is throwing a tantrum and all that, that means you're doing something wrong because now, granted, kids are going to have a tantrum here and there, but a good parent, if you're good and know what you're doing, you can often de-escalate the situation before it reaches that point,
John's soccer coach, so John is a player of the soccer, decides that everyone on the team must wear black soccer shoes. But on the day of the match, John turns up in white soccer shoes instead. No, you got to wear the uniform.
Well, yeah.
As specified.
This isn't really a question either. It's like...
It's not, yeah.
It's what does the coach do?
Yeah.
Yeah,
kind of missing a critical piece of information because if the coach
I think it's just asking
you're not in uniform.
I think it's just asking if it's okay from John's point of view for him to show up out of uniform.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, fair enough, but still, come on.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, if you don't like the idea of wearing black socks, well, you shouldn't have joined the soccer team,
Yeah, I mean, you got to wear the uniform.
Yeah, that's.
I know that. I was in marching band, and we had uniforms we had to wear, and for some reason, the uniforms we wore didn't keep us warm in cold weather, but didn't keep us cool in hot weather either. It was like not good for either one. We were sweltering hot and freezing cold.
Yeah.
Like, okay, if it had done one or the other.
Yeah. And the common joke is that, well, how come the marching band has terrible uniforms that are uncomfortable, smelly, and don't actually protect you from the elements and actually have caused injuries while marching band? It's like, well, we were going to make better uniforms, but the football team took all our funding.
That's pretty much it. We had to raise all of our own money. Even though our football team was crap, we brought in more trophies in 1 year than all of our other sporting teams had in like the entire history of the school, but we still couldn't get much of a budget for it, and we had to raise money for our own uniforms and everything.
Yeah.
So, all right, a man sets... Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was about to say, a lot of people love to blame, sports for a lot of school funding issues, but the truth is, they're just a small part of the problem,
Yeah, but maybe a small one, but a significant one too.
Yeah.
I mean, the biggest one is probably it all just being absorbed by the administrators giving themselves raises and stuff like that.
Well, yeah, that too. I mean,
they say, oh, we're going to raise all this money to pay the teachers, and then you look how much. Then, well, the teachers get paid a little more, but then you look at how much more the administrators are getting paid.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is seeming like a ripoff here.
If the administration says we need to raise all this money for teachers, you got to take a good, long, hard look at whether or not the teachers are unionized, because if the teachers are unionized, the administration's bullshitting because the rate that the teachers are being paid is set by the agreement between the school and the union.
That's true. But even if they're not, look at what the administrators are getting paid. And if the administrators are getting paid these ridiculous amounts, it's like, well, how about you guys take a pay cut and give that to the teachers?
That's another thing. That's another thing too with a lot of teachers is that they're always complaining. It's like, oh, we're not getting paid enough and all that. Well, you want to know why teachers in some cases aren't getting paid enough, even though teachers as a whole are actually get paid pretty decently? It's actually because of your union contract. If I recall correctly, many teachers unions have a rule that flat out says no teacher can be given a pay raise unless the entire union agrees to it. So you could be the best teacher. You could be the best teacher in the school. All the kids love you, and you're able to take, kids, who have troubled issues and turn them into students. But you're not going to get paid anymore because the union contract says nope, we're a seniority based system. We can't. We're not going to base your pay based on student performances. And if you want a pay increase, you're going to have to bring it up in the next union meeting.
Well, and that's the thing is unions do not want merit-based pay. They are always against that.
Yeah.
That cuts the thing of, you can't get a pay increase unless all of the unionized teachers get a pay increase and all the union agrees to it. Cuts both ways as well, because if the school gets slightly reduced funding 1 year, it's like, well, either we got to let, so if the school doesn't have as much money in the budget as they did in years before, and they say, well, we got to cut teachers' numbers. If all of the teachers agree, well, we don't want anyone to be let go, so we'll voluntarily take a pay cut so nobody has to get fired. And the union says, well, no, you're not allowed to take a pay cut. Well,
but they can't let them go either.
All of the teachers.
Yeah. But they can't let them go either. They can't even fire teachers that are abusing students.
Oh yeah. And on the rare case when they do, it takes years and so much resources.
All right, let's move on. A man sets up an unlicensed medical practice, but makes all of his customers sign a contract acknowledging that he's not a licensed physician. I mean, if he's open about it, I'm okay with it.
Oh yeah, if he's open about it, then I can't say, then I can't.
Assuming it's not outright fraud like naturopathy or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, if he's open about it and he says, and he says, like, if he's saying, listen, I have medical training, but I'm not a licensed physician, so I hope you realize that, then sorry, people who get a botched back alley lip job. If that was the case, then I have little sympathy for you, now, because there's a huge difference between a guy being open about it and a guy saying, oh yeah, I know what I'm doing, and he botches it, and then he later learned he was actually kicked out of medical school. Then I understand. And in all honesty, this whole thing about licensing physicians is actually the reason why we have such a shortage of healthcare, is because we have doctors that are good enough to theoretically start treating patients, but they're not allowed to start treating because, oh, they're not licensed. And really, what does a license mean? You know?
All right, Jane's boss calls all of his employees by their first names, but does not allow any of them to call him by his first name. When Jane insists that it must be a two-way street, he fires her. Okay, well, first of all, the boss is an idiot because he might be letting go of a very good employee that way. But morally, it's his business, his choice.
Yep. But then again, it can also then again, I could also make the argument this is also poor contest because, because the boss isn't always the business owner. Some places do have a rule that do have a place, I mean, it depends, but...
That's true. If the owner is someone above the boss, the owner might go, "Hey, wait a minute, what are you doing? That was a good employee, and you fired her. Get over yourself."
Because I do know some places do have that policy that says, especially smaller chains, listen, if the manager is going to fire someone, he has to contact the owners because sometimes, again, stuff like this can happen, and it's to make sure, that if you're going to fire someone, it's for a good reason, and not just because they.
And that's also a reason for 2 weeks notice or things like that. One, of course, is just out of courtesy to give them a chance to find another job. But the other is so that, if there is a problem, the upper management can review the decision and they would have a chance to go back on it. Yeah. So, that helps them as well as the employee.
Oh yeah, I've heard stories about that where the whole point of it, where a 2 weeks notice. Where a 2 weeks notice saved them because they were having a fight with their boss about a pay raise they were promised, but they weren't getting it, and he was getting furious. And he says, "That's it. I'm gonna, that's it. I'm gonna quit the job." But the person told him, "No, just give it 2 weeks notice and wait to see what happens." And sure enough, like a week later, they sent him an email stating, "We're sorry. There was a mix up, but we're gonna give you your pay raise." Okay.
This is a guy out of my own heart. Scott is hosting a dinner party. For dessert, he serves chocolate cake shaped to look like dog poop.
Well,
I never did dog poop, but I did do dirt once. It was like chocolate ice cream and then some whipped cream and mixed up with Oreos, and then a topping of ground Oreos, and it really looked like potting soil. I put it in, and it was clean and everything, but I put it in a plastic flower pot and stuck a fake flower in it.
Yeah.
And served it that way.
I mean,
everyone eat the dirt out of the flower pot.
I mean, I would say okay, but still, again, it depends on the context. Like if this was like a fancy, very formal gathering, then yeah, you could make the argument making a prank cake like that is not good because it's not appropriate. But if it's like a casual, fun get together, and Scott has a reputation of doing stuff like that, and people love it, then there's no problem.
Well, he's hosting a dinner party. I'm assuming these guys know Scott and the kind of person he is. So.
I would also like to point out that I've never seen dog poop. I have seen prank cakes, like for baby showers where they take a diaper and they put melted chocolate in it as a joke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This kind of reminds me of the the trend of all of these high-end pastry chefs making cakes that look like something else, and then there were, of course, these artists on Twitter making comics. Pastry chef comes out with a pineapple, cuts into it, it's cake. He cuts into the table, it's cake. He cuts into himself, he cuts into the customers, also cake. And there's
everything's
this big
cake.
Knife, there's this big knife going down the side of the comic. The comic itself is also a cake.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
A pair of parents, try saying that 3 times fast, read about the exotic delicacies of Africa and the Far East. In the coming week, they serve dog meat to their children.
Well, did they get the meat, legally?
Also, dog meat isn't a delicacy anywhere in the world.
Yeah, that's also true. Like, a lot of people, a lot of people.
I mean, there are places where they've had to do that out of desperation because they're starving.
Yeah, that's actually a thing people fail to realize. The reason why the Chinese, have the stereotype of eating cats and dogs is because during Mao's Great Leap Forward, people were literally starving to death, that they were basically eating anything they could, and that included stray
Mm-hmm.
cats and dogs.
Yeah.
I saw an interview with this elderly Chinese woman who grew up under Mao Zedong, and she says she remembers her dad going out and literally hunting cats and rats to eat because that's how desperate for food they were. I mean, they were even doing things like dumpster diving. You know,
Pierre says, isn't it happening right now in North Korea? I'm not sure, but it was happening for at least for a while there in Venezuela.
yeah.
There are places in the world, but it's not a delicacy. It's not like a tradition of a thing that they do. No, I mean, I hate everything about this question.
Yeah, in fact, actually, Shane, in fact, China's Great Leap Forward is actually the reason why there's so many endangered animals in China. It's because Mao's Great Leap Forward completely damaged the ecosystem.
Yeah.
Especially his war on the 7 pests, because by wiping out many of those pests, he inadvertently affected the food chain, which led to a chain reaction, which led to many animals native in China to having their houses and natural food sources messed up.
Jack and Will are classmates. Will's father is a lawyer. When he picks up Will from school, he refuses to say hi to Jack's father because he is only a janitor. So this is a morality test, not a politeness test. It's definitely impolite, but I wouldn't say it was immoral. Those are two different things.
Well, yeah, because, you're under... And again, another problem with this question is that it's assuming that you know, but the truth is you don't always know, if Will's father's a lawyer and Jack's dad's a janitor, but Will's father doesn't say hi to Jack, well, there could have been a variety of reasons why he didn't say hi to him,
Well, it's given as part of the question that.
Well,
that's
I know
the
that,
reason.
but that's the reason why I hate questions like this, is because the truth is you don't always know what's going on in a person's head,
Yeah.
That's why I hate SJWs with their cancer culture, because even if someone did say something legitimately offensive, well, what was the context and what was the thought process? You don't know.
When Carl's soccer team is squaring off against the team of another nation, he sings along to the other team's national anthem instead of his own.
Yeah.
I don't care. It's a national anthem. It's a song. It's words to music. Whatever.
One could make the argument if the team's like a private company and you have to do that, then yeah. But I remember going to a lot of
But
hockey
it doesn't
games.
say anything about the coach requires him or anything like that.
Yeah.
Like it's a condition
Yeah.
of there. It's just something he
Well,
does.
And here's another thing too. When I was in elementary school, I used to go to a lot of hockey games, and then because it's Wisconsin and it's hockey, a lot of people that are on the teams are Canadian, so we would sing both the Canadian and the U.S. national anthem. And if I recall correctly, we were encouraged, if you were an American but you knew the lyrics, it was perfectly fine, and in some cases encouraged to sing along just out of politeness.
Yeah, and I mean maybe their other anthem's just better. Let's face it. I will never ever understand why they picked Anacreon in Heaven to make our anthem around it. I'm sorry, it is a terrible piece of music.
Yeah.
Whereas, say what you want, the USSR had all sorts of terrible things about it, and the words to their national anthem are terrible, but the music is actually pretty darn good.
Yep.
I gotta give them that.
Yep. Well, their current national anthem is just a reworded version of the old Soviet national anthem. And if I recall correctly, the Soviet national anthem is just based off of a reworded of the Imperial anthem. China's also got a pretty good national anthem. The lyrics are terrible, but it's got a really good hook to it.
Yeah, so write a better anthem and maybe we'll sing along to it.
Yeah.
I don't get like national anthems and the Pledge of Allegiance and stuff like that.
Not to mention,
it's a load of crap because this is a religion. That's what you do. And you pledge to it and you sing your hymns and you do that. That's a bunch of crap. We need to get rid of all of them.
And not to mention, Shane, because the Star-Spangled Banner has so many high notes, it's like, well, yeah, it's no wonder why there's so many, videos of people failing to sing the Star-Spangled Banner, because the song does naturally have very high notes that very few people can reach, which is why it's a very, very easy song to fudge up.
Well, and also the words were not written to go along with it originally. It was just a poem, and the first verse isn't quite so bad. Try singing the other verses to it. Don't really fit.
Yeah.
So, when Lily tells her classmate Sue that it's her dream to be prom queen, she laughs out loud and says, "You're too ugly for that." Well, okay, points for honesty.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
it's impolite, but I'm going to nudge it towards the okay.
And here's another thing too that people fail to realize. Honesty doesn't exactly mean you're telling the truth. It just means you're stating what your opinion is.
Yeah. Well, what's your perception of reality
Yeah.
from your own subjective viewpoint?
Yeah. I mean, Lily may not be ugly, but if you believe she's ugly and you tell her that, that's being honest, because that's just you're saying what your opinion is.
Yeah. I mean, to tell the truth as you see it.
Yeah.
That's the moral thing.
I mean, it actually reminds me of one thing that one person told me, this one advice I read one time, which says instead of teaching it's wrong to tell a lie, they just say, be honest, not truthful. Because, you may be wrong, but it's much better to just tell what you think.
And Dangerous Snake says, well, aren't these questions about morality instead of justice? Like, yes, it's justified to be rude, but isn't it an immoral thing to be pointlessly rude? Well, that's why I kind of nudged it to the okay instead of all the way. I mean, she could have been more tactful about it. But, yeah, like I said, points for honesty.
Yeah.
And because, I mean, if she is an ugly girl and her friends are all going, oh, no, you're beautiful, and you give her this false hope and this false, vision of herself, and then when those hopes get dashed along the rocks and, she becomes completely demoralized by it, what are you going to say? Well, at least we were polite,
Yeah, well, yeah, that is true. That's actually another reason why SJW culture is here is because, don't get me wrong, I agree, we shouldn't be putting people down, but if there's a legitimate fault with a person that's fixable, you should be able to point it out without worry. Like, if a girl is really, really fat, and she's like, am I fat? You shouldn't be afraid to say, well, it wouldn't hurt, to maybe eat less and maybe hit the gym every once in a while. That shouldn't be considered fat shaming. That's, perfectly rational way to put it,
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, Dan turns up the TV just as his father is talking about his military service. Yeah, well, again, I can see that. I can see that.
But again, it can also depend on the context, because like if his dad's an ex-Green Beret who served in Vietnam and he's talking about all, the Vietnamese villagers killed, then I can see him turning it up,
Yeah, talking about all the people he blew apart and
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
especially if he's going on about this again.
Yeah. Or another thing too, and this also depends on the context. Now we're trying to assume that Dan's a teenager, but what if Dan is an adult, and he, did his service, and his dad's an older gentleman, but he's more proud about what he did, but Dan doesn't like it. It could be triggering for him, not to sound like an SJW, so he's naturally turning it up because he doesn't want to hear it,
I'm sorry, people. This needs to be said. Serving in the military does not make you a good person.
Yep.
What you do, what your actions are, make you a good person. You might have done some good stuff in the military, and that would make you a good person, but you didn't become a good person just because you put on a uniform and learned how to kill people.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, it's like, it reminds me of this one funny joke one time where it's like, what? I'm a much better person than you. I served in Vietnam. Yeah, well, I went on to form a successful business and made a lot of people happy. What did you do? Oh, I burnt down an entire commie village and I do it all over again. It's like, yeah, that says a lot about you.
All right, 34 of 36. We're reaching the home stretch here. Oh, we've been at this for almost an hour and a half. So, Tom and Linda have been dating for almost a year. Since they never agreed to be exclusive, Tom sleeps with other women without telling Linda. Well, I mean, if that's the arrangement.
Yeah. Well, I still think it's scumbag of him to not tell her because, if you're going to be in an open relationship.
But, I mean, that might be like, that's what a lot of open relationships are. Hey, go sleep around with whoever you want. I just don't want to hear about it.
Yep.
So it depends on the terms of this open relationship, which they don't tell us.
But
I mean, if it is open.
But I will say this, Tom, if you sleep with a woman and you start feeling funny not too long after, then you probably should tell Linda because,
Yeah. Might want to do, the whole make sure you're not giving Linda an STD or anything.
It's like, so how are you and Linda doing? Oh, it's okay. She's okay with me sleeping with other women as long as I don't brag about it and all that. By the way, guys, my crotch has been itching ever since
Let's not go there.
Yeah, it's like
let's
buddy,
not go into the gory details.
Yeah.
But yeah, he
like
does have that responsibility, but the question doesn't go into that.
Yeah.
The question is just, is it moral for him to sleep with other women? And I mean, if it's an open relationship, then sure.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a different if it's exclusive and you say, I want you to be
the moral thing.
There you go.
I've actually heard from some people that says that contrary to how porn portrays it, it's not as awesome as you think it is. Like they said, like, really, it's not that awesome. It's like, well, it's possible, but you kind of gotta know each other and you gotta figure out the right position to work around because contrary to what porn does, most threesomes are going to be with people with different body weights and lengths and all that. So you gotta adjust to accommodate for that. It's not like in porn. It's not like in porn where they can get 3 actors that have the general same size and BMI.
And they block it out in advance and everything and plan out what they're going to do.
Yeah.
There's a script they follow, so yeah, it's a fantasy.
Yeah.
All right, 35. Emma and Cindy are summer interns at Chris's office. Emma does slightly better than Cindy. At the end of the summer, there's only one job opening, but Chris gives it to Cindy because he finds her more attractive.
Well, that's... I mean...
But Emma's only doing slightly better. I mean, how do you even judge that?
Yeah.
If it's that close.
Yeah.
Well, ultimately...
I mean, what's her job? If her job...
who to hire, it's... he can have whatever criteria he likes, in my opinion, trying to... enforce you're not allowed to do it based on appearance. It's like, okay.
But I mean, think about it. If her job is like being at the front desk and greeting people or something like that, I mean, it sounds perverse, but you probably would want a more attractive person in that position.
Yeah, I've actually read that in some circumstances it's actually good to have an attractive woman, because a charming, attractive woman, especially if she's a front desk is a perfect way to get people in because they're just gonna like her because sometimes, when people are going to a store, they might have a bad day when they see this cheerful, attractive woman, who's like, hey, good morning, how's everything going? It can uplift you a little better,
Yeah, and Yosef says, if it's a clothing store with a clothing model, women are more apt to buy from attractive women.
Well, yeah,
So,
well,
I mean, it doesn't say what slightly better means and what the criteria is and how it doesn't say it doesn't give us any context whatsoever.
I'd like to make the point of, even if you take the worst possible assumptions about what Chris wants, like, okay, let's make the assumption that Chris is a bit of a pig and all he wants is office eye candy. If Emma is career-minded and doesn't care for that sort of thing, does she really want to work for Chris?
Yeah, exactly.
That's a good point. Yep.
Yeah, and
it's like, do you really want to work for someone like that?
And I was about to say this, going back to the whole store model thing, that's another thing that feminists get all wrong about, beautiful models and clothing. They're not for men, they're for women, because unless the guy, is, has gender dysphoria or is into some kinks, what guy is going to want to go in and buy a bra and underwear? It's for, the whole point is for, it's like if you have, if you get this, if you buy, this this lingerie, it'll make you feel pretty too. That's the whole point. It's aimed at women, not men.
All right, last question. The principal of the school says that none of her students are allowed to draw Muhammad on the school premises or bring Muhammad cartoons to school. Well, here you have a little bit of an issue because if it's a private school, Yeah, I mean, if it's, and especially if it's a Muslim school and that's the belief. If it's a public school, you've got freedom of speech issues there, don't you?
Yeah. If it's a public government school that's mandatory, then it's wrong because a government, owned and operated facility qualifies as public space, so therefore your First Amendment applies. But yeah, if it's like a private school, and whether they say you can't do it because they're being respectful, or if they're a Muslim school themselves, then yeah, then if you think that's absurd, then don't send your kid there. Yeah, that's another thing
but there's two things about the public school. Is one, it's taxpayer funded, so people are having their money taken by force to do it, and two, the kids are required to go there unless their parents are rich enough to afford to send them somewhere else. So
yeah,
I mean, those two things together mean that no, okay, if you're going to do this to the kid against their will, against the will of the parents, and against the will of the community, because you're taking everyone's tax money for it, tax money is taken by force without consent, then you got to give them those rights. So
yeah. And here's another thing, Mr. or Mrs. Principal of that school, if it is a public school and you announce due to cultural sensitivity, drawing Muhammad or bringing Muhammad cartoons is strictly forbidden the next day. Why the heck is there Muhammad pictures everywhere?
Streisand effect. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, just like that one South Park episode when Matt Stone and Trey Parker got threatened, with violence, because they made a Muhammad joke. What did it do? It started Draw Muhammad Day.
Yep.
And yes, the original founder had to go into hiding, but it's still going on and strong today.
Yep, that was the Charlie Hebdo guys.
Yep.
That started doing Muhammad cartoons in response to that, and then the violence.
Yeah. And the funny thing about Draw Muhammad Day is that a lot of the pics were actually hilarious, and they were actually making the joke about how you can't portray Muhammad. So the joke is that nobody knows what it looks like, so they're drawing like all these random pictures saying, "Yeah, I'm Muhammad." It's Muhammad.
Or they draw a stick figure and write Muhammad and point an arrow to him.
Yeah, it's like, Muhammad actually looks like that. But how did we know he looked like that? Well, how do you know he didn't? After all, it's considered a sin to draw and describe the prophet. So
yep.
Yeah, for all we know, he could have been a giant pink, purple polka dotted elephant.
All right, I'm leaving this one in the middle because it's a bad question. We don't know if it's a public school or private or whatever.
And I should just quickly add, that's another thing I hate about, anti-private school people that say, oh, look at all these bad rules that these private Catholic schools have. It's like, yeah, you want to know the difference between a private Catholic school and a public school? For the most part, nobody forces you to go to the Catholic school,
Yeah.
You have to go to the public school. So if the public school has a stupid law, there's not a damn thing you or your parents can do about it.
All right, should I hit finish then? And we'll see how immoral I am.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, this is interesting. We've got a graph here. Okay, I am in the green, and then I am compared to left, liberal, conservative, and libertarian. I am behind the curve when it comes to care, way behind when it comes to fairness and loyalty. Authority, I'm definitely behind. I'm behind the libertarians and the left liberals, and way behind the conservatives. Purity, I'm pretty much on par with the left liberals and libertarians, but way behind the conservatives. And liberty, I don't quite have as much liberty as libertarians. I've got more than liberals and conservatives. It must have been those badly worded questions. So.
Probably.
That's what I'm going to say. Okay, my scores. Care is 47%, so I only care half the time, I guess. Loyalty, 17%. Fairness, 17%. Authority, 33%. Purity, 25%. And liberty, 83%. Your strongest moral foundation is liberty. Your morality is closest to that of a libertarian.
Still a terrible questionnaire, though.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, loyalty. It's pretty funny too, because it's like a lot of cartoons, including the My Little Pony TV show, try to portray loyalty as an admirable trait, but the truth is loyalty can be very easily abused.
Yeah.
And
so care pertains to our mammalian need to care for our young and to form bonds of attachment to others, underlying kindness and nurture. Thing is, it didn't really ask any questions about that.
Yeah.
It didn't ask any questions about, how a father should treat his daughter or whatever.
Yeah.
All right, fairness. This foundation pertains to our ability to maintain cooperative and mutually beneficial relationships, honesty, justice, dependability, emotions such as gratitude, anger, and guilt. Loyalty. Yeah, this is where I start having a problem with them. This foundation is derived from our species' long history of living as tribes and clans, enabling us to form cohesive communities. It underlies the virtues of patriotism, bravery, and self-sacrifice on behalf of the group. No, that is not how it happened. When we were hunter-gatherer cultures, that was not what was going on. We were very cooperative, but it wasn't this, it wasn't this, patriotic and bravery and, loyalty. It was just, trading with other people, and you're part of your group and you traded with other groups. That's not how it happened, people. That's complete pseudoscience.
Yeah, it underlines the virtue of patriotism, bravery, and self-sacrifice. Son, do you understand what loyalty is? Yes, and I also understand a thing or two about cults. I know, because I was the leader of one for a while.
And then there's...
Yeah, I mean, it is true just how much a lot of religions and even the military, like I was saying earlier, how much, if you were to easily apply it to a cult, it's very similar.
Authority. This foundation was shaped by humanity's long history of bonding together. Authority is about bonding, Chris. Why don't you understand that? It underlies the virtues of respect for tradition and deference to legitimate authority. There's an oxymoron for you. Legitimate authority.
Well, to be fair, I think, there is such a thing as legitimate authority. The problem is that that's only for like private, organizations. Like, with a company, like obviously the founder and owner is generally a person is considered a person of authority, because from a practical standpoint, they own the place, and if it wasn't for them, you wouldn't have a job. So it's courteous, to show some respect, but
but it's not really authority because it's a voluntary arrangement.
Yeah, but when men on high castles, start giving out demands and expect you to follow them, and their excuse is, well, God put me in power, or the people voted for me, or I've got all these men that are loyal to me, and they'll come after you if you don't obey, then that's not legitimate authority. That's just you being an asshole.
Purity. There's purity. You can be pure. This pertains to our species' need to avoid disease and parasites. Okay, we did talk about that, but not because none of the questions covered that. It underlies that, like if in that one question, it had said something about, whatever his name was, sleeping with the other women in the open relationship. If it had said something about STDs and how about he, should morally avoid them, that would be one thing. They didn't ask that, though.
Yeah.
It underlies the phenomenon of cultural taboos and fuels the commitment to live in a manner that abstains from indulgence in sensory desires.
Yeah, that's another thing. That's another thing I hate about purity, because purity is purely within the eye of the beholder.
Yeah. Liberty. Let's see what they say about this if they get this one right. Tied to the individual's need to be his own master and to avoid the dominant social mores imposed by the group, and underlies the virtues of independence and autonomy. It's tied to emotions such as self-sufficiency and defiance. Libertarians typically score the highest on this dimension. Yeah. But, I mean, it doesn't really get to the heart of it, though. The heart of it is that it's immoral to use force to get what you want, and we should try to get what we want from others through mutually beneficial exchange. And I have a feeling that a lot of the questions that we answered on that basis didn't count towards this, because they were looking at fairness or something else.
Yeah. And in all honesty, when you really think about it, fairness in many cases isn't even fair to begin with, All
right, let's just skip the others and see what they say about libertarians. Individuals in this group seek to uphold liberty as the primary political good in all respects. They tend to see themselves as staunch supporters of both personal and economic freedom, same thing, and are deeply skeptical of collective plans and goals, stressing instead the principle of voluntary association and the individual's capacity to make his own judgments. Okay, not bad. They typically see less of a role for the state than individuals in the two other groups, believing instead in the spontaneous social order of the market. Yeah, again, not really getting to the core of it, but not bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, the questions don't really go to, the last question about the school. we were talking about how it made all the difference whether it was a public school or a private school.
Yeah.
So and there were so many questions where we were like, this depends entirely on the context, and they give us no context. So
yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's also true. And I mean, and like you said, Shane, libertarianism at its core isn't an economic or social order. It's just a belief in the non-aggression principle, and the reason why almost all libertarians tend to be free market capitalism or full-blown ANCAPs is because that's the only way you can have a society that doesn't violate the non-aggression principle.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess we're done here for this week. We got everything working eventually, so maybe we would have had a few more viewers if we had gotten that going early. But man, YouTube gets it working, and then they change it and it breaks things.
Yeah.
It's like, why don't you
Kinda
fix
like
the
when
things that need to be fixing first before you go messing with everything else?
Yeah. Kind of like Marvel when they kept switching editors back in the 90s.
Yeah. All right.
Oh, you actually got that reference.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So any final thoughts then?
Nope. I gotta leave now because I gotta get ready for work in about 15 minutes.
All right. Take care. Don't work too hard. How about you, Pip? You got anything to say before we sign off?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Well, I guess thanks also to everyone who is in the chat. I'm glad we were able to get you up on the screen and preserve every single word you said for posterity. So, yep. You're going to be held accountable to this in 20 years if you try to run for office or become a celebrity or something. They're going to go back to this, look what you said back in this chat. So, oh well. You probably had more views if you stream during prime time. Sometimes I can. It just all depends on schedules. So, we usually either do 10 in the morning or 8 at night. And time zones are also, because, Pip, aren't you in Australia or New Zealand or somewhere?
Yeah, I am in Australia.
Australia, yeah. So what time is it there?
It's actually not too bad. It's about 15 past 1.
Okay.
Yeah,
So late night, early morning there. So you see there are time zones. But yeah, prime time in the U.S. time zones might do better. But it's all good. The different time zones allow different people to participate. So just thanks to everyone who did participate, and thanks to everyone who's watching. Whether you watched it live or after the fact, it's all good. If you like what I do, please share all of my videos everywhere, and please go to donate.bogosity.tv. Give whatever you can. For most things, they at least make you give $1. But if you give by cryptocurrency, you can just give a few pennies if you want. It's cool. I'm trying to work on a way where the AnyPay people have done this thing where it's just like a single QR code, and you click it no matter which cryptocurrency you're doing, so you don't have to like go through different ones for different cryptocurrencies. One QR code where you can use Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cash, Bitcoin SV, Dash, and I think a couple others. I'm not sure what they've set up yet. But I mean, that would be the thing. Just have a universal QR code. You use that and you pay with whatever cryptocurrency you want. That's kind of awesome. So thanks again, everyone. Please go and support this channel any way you can. Till next time, stay strong.